Wong everine kinyokin kikusiake maninki.
Yeah, so this leads us now to the new executive skill, which we think is AI judgment. So if hidden costs are increasing, then the leaders need a capability to manage those costs. So, and I think that capability is judgment.
Yeah. How do you measure that? How do you put a cost? What's the currency of judgment, I guess, would be the question, right? Mm-hmm. So how do I develop the judgment in the first place to know what's right and wrong, acceptable, not acceptable, hallucination? How do I go through? That's almost part of the governance process that I think you would need as part of an AI implementation. I think it's a really interesting point of the system. I'll take it a step further. So the system's generating an answer. So AI gives me an answer. AI gives me a recommendation. And if we buy into our hypothesis that AI is there to augment human work, right? So make me to do my job better. What's the judgment that I apply to the information I'm getting from my AI system to say, yep, that's right, I'm going to take that and leverage it or use it, or to say, no, that doesn't feel right or that isn't right. Somewhere, and then if it's not right, what do I do with it? What's the governance process to fix it? Probably the same thing for if it's right, what's the governance process to reinforce that that was the right answer so that the system can continue to do that? Those are all things that we just haven't had to deal with in the past, this scale, right?
So I'm like, knowing when to trust AI, when to challenge it, when to verify, and when to ignore. So I think these 4 steps are very powerful. Going back to our previous episode on AI literacy, which will help leaders understand the technology, and AI judgment will actually help them to make better decisions. The literacy part of it will explain the tool, and the AI judgment will govern the decisions.
And so I think it's an important part. I think make me think it's an important part of the literacy program of the training. Do you trust AI? We're talking about how do I know if the answer I'm getting or the information I'm getting, how do I know if that's wrong or right or wrong? When do I trust? When do I challenge AI? So when maybe the answer I'm getting is mostly correct, but feels like it's a little bit off. And so how can I re-prompt it, so to speak? How can I say, well, this, but use this one part? How do I know that I can verify it so I can, that the answer is correct? That's important feedback to have as well. And when do I just ignore it? What do I do there? So these are all important feedback loops that the system the AI system would want, or anybody that's in charge of that would want, because that helps them generate better responses. But people haven't had to do this in their job before. You usually don't have to say that's wrong, that's partially right, because you're doing the work yourself. It's right or wrong, or you think you do at least. So if it's wrong, you keep working on it. If the numbers don't work out in your financial ledger, you keep working on it to figure out, well, what don't things match up? Why isn't this working? If it's right, then you take it and you use it. So this is, I think, a new for us of taking AI generated responses and then knowing if they're right or wrong or partially correct, and then not only using that to help me do my work, but also providing feedback to say that was right or partially. So that helps the system kind of, right? Oh, that was a correct versus an incorrect answer. But I think that could eat up the productivity gain rate. So I gain time because I don't have to sift through all this data and figure out a trend, and I can use that moving forward. But now I also have to spend time getting back into the system and saying, yeah, it was right and this was wrong. And this is new for us, I think. This is a new one.
Yeah, let's take a scenario like use a practical example. Let's say AI recommends reducing customer support headcounts by saying, it looks very bright, right? Very good, very brilliant. What do you think will go wrong there?
Well, I think you have experience could go downhill, right? Could ruin or take a hit on your brand. I think employee morale and retention could be an issue. So you're reducing headcount. You're probably expecting people the work doesn't go away generally. You're saying, hey, the AI is going to replace the work, right? So typically something falls back onto the remaining employees. There's a morale issue. And if the AI system is generating incorrect or slightly incorrect answers they have to fix, boy, then I've really kind of more work on the existing employees, right? My financials won't work out, my ROI. But on the bottom line, boy, I got rid of the headcount. And so we reduced our cost as a company. Look brilliant, right? As a CFO or a finance organization. Meanwhile, inside, you tell that there's a degradation of service. They're not as happy as they used to be. Employee morale is going down. And if you don't fix those kind of things, because they don't hurt you right away, these are things that show up 6-12 months later. Good employees are always the first to leave. So they'll start leaving because they'll say, this is crazy. I'm going to go find a place to be. Clients will not retain, don't want to do any more business with you. But again, these don't show up right away. The headcount saving shows up right away, right? So I think you have to look at these things. And again, this gets back to the balanced scorecard topic of earlier, really understanding the different KPIs that you're looking at to understand short and long term, what are the impacts that you're having on the company.
And you forgot to mention the brand reputation and the emphasis on the long-term value of the company as well.
Biggest, I've seen some companies to $10 billion companies where, and I think it gets uses more in the larger companies because they have so many clients and customers out there, whether they're retail or B2B. But they word of mouth is the biggest thing that kills them. It's the biggest thing that can help them out, and it's the biggest thing that kills them. So if I'm a CIO and I talk to other CIOs about a vendor out there, and everybody's telling me, yeah, that vendor's really that good, but we're not real happy with them, I'm not going to be really inclined to use them. But if I hear from everybody that, oh, that vendor, we love their service, we love everything they do about, help us, well, then, I'm going to work with them. And so I think, work based on experiences that people are having, that marketing, whether it's good or bad, can really push an organization forward or backwards. And that's all your brand reputation. And not so much like the formal brand reputation. I think this is more the informal one. When communities together, whether they be CFOs or CIOs or CEOs, right?
Yeah. So this means the best AI recommendation is not always the best business decision.
Yeah. I mean, the context of what it is you're trying to do as a business and how does AI help you do that? And I think that then you're in a discussion that could be the right discussion, right? But if I'm isolated within an organization and I'm just trying to figure out how to make my financial record better, how to cut costs and use AI as a part of that, I think can be a very tactical discussion that can have really positive long-term effects or really negative ones. And again, I think you have to have a well-rounded discussion of, AI and change the way you do business. I don't think anybody would argue with that. The question is, it change it in a positive or a negative way, right? And I think those people that are really understanding, what am I trying to do as a business? What do I want to do short-term and long-term? And how can AI help me do those things? They have a better chance to succeed. I think people that are, and we see this, again, not a new problem that we've seen in the technology space, but I think people are looking to use AI and they're kind of in a problem to apply AI to. They're going to run into trouble because they might do something that, sure, is great for a very segmented piece of the business or a business unit, but it could have disastrous effects for the rest of the business or for down to satisfaction, client retention. So you really got to look at the whole picture on this one.
So this goes to a common assumption, and I want us to challenge it. Like people often intelligence and judgment. Do you think that's the same thing?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think I actually probably have to think about this a little bit more, but I think intelligence, you learn over time, right? You learn from both mistakes and success. Judgment is more knowing whether this is going to be a mistake or a success, absolutely, right? So that's, and we're trying to figure out the judgment piece of this. I think the intelligence comes a little later. So if I was to look at, the cycle of something, I think judgment's probably earlier than intelligence. And I think we're in that early judgment phase of how to use AI in the way from a business perspective.
Yeah, let's for example, we have two companies. They have the same AI tool, have the same access, but they come up with different leadership decisions and different outcomes. Why do you think it's so?
Well, I think you would look at it and say, well, AI wasn't the differentiator, right? The judgment or the state of the business. It's been, same AI tools in the same way, but their businesses were run completely different. Or how the AI was used by the employees, what the impact was to the client, those were probably different in that, I would imagine.
Yeah, so this which AI creates the information and leaders actually give it meaning, or they create the meaning.
That which is no different than what we've seen in the past, right? So
absolutely,
in the past, your organization create the information, right? They would say, hey, we've looked at all the data and we've looked at client retention, and here's what we see. So now what we're saying is AI is generating some of this for us because it can do it a lot faster. It can see patterns before we can see them. It can through huge, mounds of information or data and provide us some analytics. It's as what makes any business successful, right? You have to have the information that's based on data and from different points and then the leaders take that and say, okay, then here's what we need to do. We need to, we're maybe satisfaction isn't as high as we want it to be. Okay, what are we going to do about that, right? I don't think that's any different than, how to business normally with or without AI.
So I mean, this leads now to the future of leadership in the AI era. So what leadership skills become more valuable as AI improves?
So I think, it's being able to understand the information that you're getting from the system. So what's the discernment can I make with this that I'm getting? What's my thinking? Am I asking curious questions about the data or the information that I'm being given? So if AI system is me, there's a trend or some kind of analysis that I hadn't seen before, maybe I want to ask some questions about that. So how do I ask those questions back to the system? I have to figure out how to generate the right prompts. So asking questions becomes really, really important. Just basically in AI speak, that's a prompt, right? You're asking a question. So asking the right questions becomes really important. Being able to understand what is the end goal. So the strategic and tactical trade-offs. What is it I'm trying to do short-term? What am I trying to do long-term? And then I think, accountability. Use accountability in doing your job, right? No matter where you're getting the information from, whether you're getting it from your coworker Bob down the hall, the AI system, doesn't matter. You still have the accountability of making that whatever you're passing on to somebody else was accurate. And if you're getting that from an AI system, how do you know? And again, I think question answer or question asking skill, that's gonna be a big one for people. Like you can't take something and pass it on. You want something in how do you challenge that? Or if it's not right, how do you re-ask the question? We see for anybody that's using AI in their personal lives, you're already seeing this when you just do a very simple AI search or even, Google matter. Way that I ask the question delivers different answers. So that's.
So which actually leads us to the conclusion that the future executive isn't the person with the most information, but the person making the best decisions with all these informations we have around.
Yeah, I think you're going to see successful executives and successful leaders, for that matter, even the team managers in an organization. Successful ones are going to be ones that can just curiosity coaching, curiosity question asking. They're poking it, and they're not doing it in a like view or the right word, but in like a means way, but they're just trying to learn more about how did we get to this point. And so I think having curiosity and being able to learn as you go is going to be really important for leaders, because most leaders in the past, they got promoted because they were really good at the job that they were doing before, right? And they got moved up into a leadership role, no matter what level that goes up to. This becomes a little different. Your job before, but you're also really curious about where this information is coming from and what does it mean, and and what are we doing with this, and why did you go with this, why did you ask that prompt versus this prompt, so there'll be more discussions that I think teams will have. And again, that kind of eats ROI in some way of, yeah, I got the answer faster because we implemented an AI tool, but then I spent more time with my boss or my team talking about that answer maybe, or talking about the implications of it. So the saving kind of gets here. And I don't think anybody's really thinking about that because we haven't been down that road far enough yet. Does that, right? So I think these are all things that we have to keep an eye on and really look at.
Yeah. So this wasn't really about AI. It was about leadership. It was about decision making. It was about judgment.
Yeah.
And whoever succeed won't necessarily have the most AI. So they'll have the strongest human oversight and decision making capability. Isn't that so, Scott?
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's about all those things in an AI environment. It's about the leadership, the judgment, in an AI environment. And what we're seeing is that's different than in a non-AI environment, right? I know how to operate in a non-AI environment pretty well because people have done that for years. Now, as I get into more of an AI-driven environment or an AI-enabled environment or whatever it might be within your organization, the role of the leader is changing to make that the data, information that's being presented or used, how know that was accurate or answering the right question. Maybe it was answering a question that was similar or sounded the same or seemed like it was the same. So I think there's a new skill set that we're still trying to understand from a leadership standpoint when we think about an AI-enabled organization. And I think this is something that we're going through a learning process as leaders in this one. And I think we're going to see it in our teams. But as leaders, I think, that back to having the literacy of what's possible, what's not possible, what should I be able to expect, and what should I expect in our organization. So not in general, but really specific to the organization that I'm part of as a leader, because that organization could be very technology advanced or very much a laggard in technology. And so those are going to be two different expectations that I'm going to have based on either one of those. But I think being able to really, question about the things that are coming forward and looking at that strategic impact down the road of, the AI in the organization and the company can be very important.
So we can conclude that organizations that succeed won't necessarily have the most AI, but they'll have the strongest human oversight and decision-making capability.
Yeah. And so it's not going to be the most AI wins here. I think it's going to be the best uses of AI to further your strategic or competitive advantage with your clients and with as well. So it's really going to be, how am I using it and how am I using it to further my business? Not just, boy, I have 200 out there and because we have the most. You might want, but it's changing your business, increasing client satisfaction, distancing you so much from your competitors that it's all you need, or biggest one that you have. So I think it's going to be more of ones versus how many instances of it you have in a company.
So if your organization is evaluating AI readiness, governance, leadership alignment, executive decision making, or responsible AI scaling, we are helping leadership teams build practical frameworks that reduce risk while accelerating meaningful AI adoption.
Yeah, and we figured it out so far. Like we missed, times, but successful AI transformation. It's not just about deploying the technology. This is different than what we've seen in the past with different computing inflection points. Great transition we've seen in the organ. It's really going to be about making sure that the leaders are capable of making the right decisions once the technology arrives, and really using the right instances of AI to solve business problems. And if you're doing that, I think you're going to be going down the right road based on what we've seen, not only with AI so far, but with other technology implementations. If you're just using AI in search of a problem, I think you're going to struggle. So that's what we've seen so far with other clients. And
Thank you very much for joining me on this other episode.
Great discussion. Love it.
Wong every nick in yokin kikusiake manin ki. Gloria.